And I'm hitting live. Maybe. Anyway, hi. Hello, everybody on the internet. Welcome to our stream. This is me, the Unapologetic Geek. You like my new shirt? This is in honor of the fact that I used to be Banana Man. By day, mild-mannered Eric. At night, he is Banana Man. And I've got with me Thrash. Thrash Pondo Pons. Go check out his channel after this stream. He's the best.
Thank you, Tug, and hello everyone in YouTube land.
And below me we have Scott. He's just Scott.
Great Scott.
Lance was going to join us, but he woke up with a sore throat. It's that time of year. I've had a sore throat for weeks, so I completely understand. But the subject today was going to be movies that actually scare us, or at least scared us at one point in our life. And I have a few movies to talk about. I didn't write them down or anything. This is all off the top of my head. But before we get started, let's go ahead and go say hi to everybody who's in the comments.
Yes.
First of all, we have Daryl Johnson. Hello, Daryl. He was here 2 days ago.
Other brother. How you doing, Daryl?
Let's see. Keith E. Welcome, Keith. Sitting on his porch in a rocking chair. Nice. Let's see. Lance is in the chat. Hey, Lance.
Hey, Lance.
We got Indy Spoats. And
Indy, my bro.
Tom Hungry Jerk is here.
Tommy.
Michael DiCosimo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Night of the Creeps. Ooh, BK is here. Hey, BK.
BK Barry, how you doing, bro?
Always good to see you. Okay, that's everybody for now, unless you want to say hi to Scott again.
Hi, Scott.
So, before we get started, well, as a way to get started, I'm going to tell a story. When I was 9 years old, okay, I was the youngest child of three older brothers, or I had two older brothers. I was the youngest of three. And we moved when I was 9 years old into a new house, a new, really big, spacious house. And it was one night, my parents leave the house to go, have dinner without the kids. That's their right as parents. Every parent should have that. But my older brother and his friend, John, who might actually join us later, they put on Alien on the TV. And they did this in the living room, which had no furniture in it. So it's this big empty space with a TV in the corner on top of a fireplace. Why we had a fireplace in Florida, I have no idea, but that's beside the point. So we're watching Alien until midnight, and I'm 9. That movie scared the crap out of me. Probably warped me for life. I've loved horror movies ever since. But that is the one pure example of me being terrified by a movie. I don't think I've ever been as scared as I was by Alien.
Well, see, the thing about Alien that makes it so brilliant is, it's true sci-fi, granted, but it's done as a horror movie.
Yeah, it's like a gothic horror movie. Absolutely.
It's set in space.
Yeah.
And so it hit all the nerves to make people afraid.
The Nostromo even looks like a gothic castle,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. So I can definitely see that.
And then you have the art direction of Geiger, right? Or Giger, I'm not sure. And
Giger. Geiger's the radioactive guy.
Thank you. That's right. All right, Giger. Thank you, brother. And it's so sad that he passed away. That was such a devastating loss. But yeah, no, his design really just absolutely just made that movie, right? His art design, his and when you look at his art, you're just you can see just how much of this general design is an influence in his art, and just it set really the stage for that. It really a horror movie in space, like you said, a horror movie in space,
It's there's a big conflagration of events that all came together to make this movie work. You had this team that had worked on Aronofsky's Dune that were disillusioned and wanted to move on to something else, and Ridley Scott picked up the pieces and said, some of you guys, like Giger and a couple other people, come with me. We're going to make this movie from this weird script by Dan O'Bannon. which if you read the script, it's got all the elements in it, but it still lacks that tone of the movie. And Ridley Scott, fresh new director, didn't even really know what he was doing, but just pretended he did, which is how you make it, I guess. You had a bunch of actors, like the biggest name actors were just like side characters in the movie. And you know, Sigourney Weaver, what a revelation. Who'd ever heard of Sigourney Weaver before Alien, you know? Hold on a second. I forgot to close the door. I've got to go close the door.
But I'll run with it.
Yeah, go ahead and run with it. I'll be right back.
So with, you know, like and I haven't seen the movie in forever, but like the thing I don't think that is, I think it's in the back of our minds, but like the thing that I don't think they emphasize enough is that the beauty of horror in space, it's like, it's similar to the horror of being underwater, is that you're trapped, right? If something's in there, there's no escape. Like if I'm in a haunted house, I can just run out of the house, right? And so that's where they have to do all of the like, you can't open the door, you can't, because like in our minds we know, oh, you can just leave, right? There has to be that feeling of trapped, right? To add to the tension. And with space and water, you don't have to do this mystical anything. You just are. And so now, and
you don't have to come up with a way that like cell phones don't work or the car won't start. You don't have any of those issues.
Right. It just is.
Right.
And to me, you know, like even if you're going to do like on Mars or the moon, right? Again, it's that similar kind of construct that this is an atmosphere that is trying, this is an environment that is trying to kill you. Right?
Actively, yeah.
Right. And we are doing everything, just where we are is trying to kill you. And we're doing everything that we can in order to prevent that. Like, I've talked about this in our podcast, but my wife is an aerospace engineer, and like learning like all of the forces and all of the things that she has to sort of fight against to try and make sure this thing doesn't blow up just on getting to where it's aiming to go. Right. And all just like the intensity of it all. And on top of it, like the things that could go wrong from the inside out, right? And make it blow up. And all like the whirling of a turbine the wrong way could actually lead to a frequency that blows up a rocket. Like,
I think one of the things that Alien does to highlight that is that instead of going the clean cut sci-fi, which was like the trend at the time after Star Wars, everything's basically broken. It's being held together by spit and polish, by Brett and Parker. The two like least respected members of the crew are the ones keeping everyone alive. You know,
it is the Alabama mechanic of space. Yes.
Right.
Well, I got some duct tape and I got some gum, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep this thing afloat.
A wire hanger.
And before you even get to the alien, things are already going wrong. Things are already
Right.
breaking and shattering, and things need to be fixed already before they even like leave the ship, you know?
Right.
Just
And they're
landing
fighting
is
among-
an experience.
They're fighting amongst themselves too. There's already
Constantly.
conflict, and
Yeah.
so you're already set on edge. And I gotta say, from a practical standpoint, practical effects, what they do with the lighting is absolutely amazing. It's either one of two things: either it's dimly lit, so it's like something out of a Hammer film, so it's like you almost feel like something can sneak up on you because you can't see what's going on, or it's that abrasive hospital level bright, brilliant light, which is really, really off-putting. It's almost more antagonistic than the poor light. So you're always feeling like some kind of fish out of water. You're never, ever comfortable.
Yeah, and then during the
And-
climax,
yeah.
it's flashing, like strobing, literally strobing
Yeah.
between the two.
Yes, yes. Almost as if they noticed, like, hey, this is working. I go in, I go out, I go in, I go out, in, out. Yes, definitely. So, yeah, that worked on so many levels.
Yeah.
But also, like, not just that the environment is trying to kill them, but also there's the great unknown, this like giant expanse of nothingness that there could be anything lurking in, you know? Even if it's underwater, it's the same thing. It's like, ah. That's why other like horror movies set underwater work really well. Even if they're
Yeah,
really cheesy, like Leviathan or Deep Star 6. They're still great movies because the water's freaking scary. As a scuba diver, I know this.
Well, the thing about Jaws, which might come up later. But the thing about Jaws is they kill the big shark. They're swimming back to the beach. There are other sharks out there.
There's about to be a feeding frenzy.
You know, you can be attacked by any number of things. A giant squid, or I don't know. So, but they're like laughing and just sort of paddling along. I'm like, dude, you're not out of the water yet.
Ba-dum-bum.
Same principle.
So yeah, anybody have anything else about Alien? Because, I could talk about Alien all day, but we should move on. We've been 10 minutes on Alien.
It deserves it, but yes, we can move forward.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we all agree. Just one of the greatest movies.
One of the
ever.
all-time greatest horror movies ever
Of all
made.
time.
Yeah.
Period. Doesn't even have to be a sci-fi movie. It's like just a great horror movie.
And a great one to start with. Like that it really does set the bar. That I didn't have it on my list, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, why did I not? Because that's terrified me. Okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. So, let's go to Thrash.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to open with my strongest one. And I'm going to open with this because it's possibly the last film that actually scared me. Because I've been watching horror films my entire life. And this was the last time, I think I was 15, maybe 16, but it's the last film that actually got me scared. And it's 1981's Ghost Story by John Irving.
Oh.
You guys seen this one?
No, I haven't. I'm familiar with it by reputation, but I've never actually seen it.
It is absolutely amazing. It's set in New England, and as a New Englander, I can attest to this. New England just loans itself to the horror genre. It has this sort of just feel of gothic creepiness, and it's a great story. It's basically these like older men who are like the fathers of their town. In flashback, you find out that they committed some and I don't want to give the game away, so there won't be any spoilers here. But they committed some shenanigans in their youth, and those shenanigans have come back to haunt them. And basically, it's this spirit which can't rest is coming back for revenge. And not only is it incredibly atmospheric, but there's some amazing jump scares. And yet the jump scare trope never gets overused. And there are 3 or 4 scenes in this movie where I watched it and I'm like, ugh. And
Right.
again, I'm watching this in New England in like the dead of winter by myself in a very drafty like it is today, in like this like very like old like type of windy haunted house type situation. And when the movie was over, I'm kind of like, ooh. I'm actually unsettled. So I'm going to have to open with that one. Pity neither one of you guys actually saw it, but this is a high recommend. Get a chance, please. It's got the young lady in it whose name eludes me. I'm going to have to put my glasses on for just a second.
Alice Cringe.
Thank
Cringe?
you. Yeah, I get that. It's either Krieg. I think it's Krieg because she's South African.
Krieg? Okay.
I think it's Krieg.
Oh, yeah.
But she, of course, was the Borg Queen in Star Trek. That's what she's best known for.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
She's also in the
yeah.
Silent Hill movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, she is.
Which is a good
Very
movie to
cool.
bring up.
It
So,
has
that's my
Fred
recommendation.
Astaire.
Fred Astaire's in Ghost Story, really?
That's like, I was like, wait, what? That's
what they
awesome.
do, what they do was they take some of the greats, some of the aging greats that were still around in American cinema at the time, and they become the aging fathers of this New England town. The sort of
Right.
old boy network.
great. Yeah.
John Houseman's also in it. I'm sorry, John
I love-
Houseman.
Yeah, Houseman.
Yeah, Houseman. And Douglas Fairbanks Jr. is also in it.
Wow. What a cast.
Great cast. Great cast.
So
Now I wanna
looked to
see
see. Yeah, no. I looked to see where you could watch it, and it is available with a Amazon Prime subscription.
Oh,
So
good. I can
yeah,
see
if
it.
you have Amazon, if you have Amazon Prime, I know I'm like, ooh, I want to add this to my list now.
And Indy's right. Craig Wasson does a full frontal scene, and it is probably the scariest part of the whole movie. He's probably best known for Body Double, which he doesn't
Oh,
get naked
yeah.
in. But yeah, he does a full frontal, and it's off-putting.
Yeah, I don't think I want to see that. But
Is it so mangled?
let's see. Hungry Jerk says they ruined a vintage Rolls Royce to make Ghost Story.
That's right. Yes. Yes, they did.
That alone is terrifying.
I know,
That's all I
right?
can say.
Blasphemous,
I always get like
man.
a lot of people get hung up on whether or not a dog dies in a movie, but if you ruin a really nice car, that makes me go, "Oh no!"
Like, especially something that's classic Americana,
Like a Rolls Royce.
right?
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, no.
So I will start with like, so here's a little bit of a backstory. It's you know, not the scariest movie or anything like that, but so I grew up in a trailer in Iowa, and literally the backyard, like when I was really little, before we moved to Florida, like when I was really little, in this trailer park, the backyard literally was a cornfield, and it went for
I know where this is going.
acres. Yeah, I went. It went for acres. Okay, and I used to run through there and play, and it had these like little like rolling hills that you would run up and run out after they harvested and all this different, and it was wonderful, and these giant stalks and everything. And then I saw, when I was a small child, because we moved when I was 7, and this is when I watched a lot of horror movies that I probably shouldn't have watched. I watched Children of the Corn and could not sleep because I was like, they're gonna get me, I'm going to die, what's going to happen? And that like, and I still like, so I watched it when I was a small child, and it's still very because I haven't watched it since, so I don't know if it holds up, but because of that early anxiety that it instilled, like I've been very anxious about watching it again, right? And I know they did a remake of it. I want to I want to I want to go back and watch it, but like the it causes a lot of anxiety for me. But that was, to me, like it was a like, you know, this you know, concept of a movie where like, you know, children are the like, children are just scary, right? Like in horror movies, like anytime you hear like a child like, come and play, and you're like, nope, I'm out of the house, Daddy. I am done, I know, right? When I hear my kids say that to me, I'm like, nope, and I would leave the house, and then I don't, and they're like, he went to go grab milk, and we won't see him for 17 years. And so like and so
and
yeah,
the
no,
lead kid in Children, I can't remember his name, but that lead kid, so freaking creepy. His face.
the pastiness, the blonde, like that, like the Aryan, like, you know, Wunderkid, like just like I like it. He
had the attitude too,
right? And like it's so terrifying. Like this cult of like very pasty, very fair haired like children and everything hiding in the corn, and again, like corn is incredibly tall, like, and so you cannot see. So it's that construct of, you don't know what's coming, especially if it's like when it's really
Danny's coming.
grows out. The leaves all like kind of like really build in together and make it very, very hard to see, and unless you make like really good rows, like it's hard to get through. And so like if you have like when they do like the earnest corn mazes and stuff like that, if they were to like not make the maze, it's really hard to get through there and like not be like taken down by like a wolf or a lion or whatever wants to get you. And so
sorry to interrupt, but goodbye, Nicole. Thanks for showing up on your break.
Nicole,
yep.
Take care.
Love it.
So I'm curious what the audience thinks of Children of the Corn. Have they seen it recently? And like, so put your comments in there if you've seen it.
I think I saw it like 10 years ago. It was one of the nights where I had to work on Halloween, and I was doing that overnight shift, so I had like AMC on, and they showed it on AMC, and that was again about 10 years ago. I haven't seen it in ages, but it is a great flick.
Yeah.
Oh, and Lance, I was going to mention Signs. It's another movie where the cornfield is scary.
Yes.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even that, like, it's not a cornfield, but like that hedge maze in not The Shining. We'll talk about that later. But like in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, even that is scary.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, like, and just again, it lends to that anything you can't see, right? Or that obscured, like what you can't see becomes like really, really terrifying. And so
Well, the best scene in The Thin Red Line is when it's not corn, but it's that very, very, very high, tall Pacific grass.
Right.
And the Japanese soldiers are running through it randomly, and you see their bayonets like shark fins. And it's a terrifying scene. And I'm like, wow, it becomes a horror movie all of a sudden. Yes, that the idea of something that comes out after you out of the tall grass, or wheat, or corn. Yes, I fully understand wherever you talk.
I distinctly remember that scene. Yeah.
Best scene in the whole movie. Literally the best scene in the whole
terrifying. Jurassic Park did something similar in one of the Jurassic Park movies. I don't remember which one.
movie.
But
It was
yeah,
Jurassic Park 2.
2 probably.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. It was Jurassic Park 3, and it's the scene where all the velociraptors kind of come together.
Right,
So
yeah.
you don't
You see them walking, and then you see
tra-
those,
yeah.
the
You see
tree
the
lines.
trails as they.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's get this mobile feast en route.
Indeed, I think the most scary thing about Jeepers Creepers isn't the cornfield; it's the director. But yeah. Oh, Donovan is here. Donovan Belair. Hello.
Oh, Donovan's brain. How you doing?
You're right. The mutant toys in Toy Story are pretty darn creepy.
That's a genuinely creepy scene.
yeah.
My wife can't watch Toy Story 3 because the scene in the like dumpster where they're about to be burned alive and they just like accept it really freaks her out. She can't deal with it.
No, that resolve that you get to whenever it's like there is no hope to get out. Like
And they just hold hands and like accept their fate. Yeah.
no, I think that's like I like again, it's the most terrifying thing about it is that because when we're not in that situation, like all of us have this natural inclination for survival and to fight no matter what, right? If someone's like drowning or suffocating or whatever, like when they talk about like if you're in a casket or something like that and you see like the claw mark, like Auschwitz, right? No, like Auschwitz, like, and you see like the claw marks in the cement, right? Like, and that you're thinking about like fingers clawing a cement block, right? And that you can actually see, we don't have claws, right? And so how they're making this, right? So that desperation, right? That it calls into, sorry to go really dark with it, but but that's what it's kind of playing into, right? Like that's what horror plays into is our darkest, scariest moments, right? And Auschwitz is one of those, right? And it's and so like even then there's no resolve. There's no, just like resolve and or resolution into like, well, we're just gonna die. No, it's fighting to the very, very last, right? And everything.
Yeah, and I think what makes that
give up.
I think what makes that even more terrifying in Toy Story is that like they not only stop fighting, but they actually seem to find solace in just accepting it and like making peace with it, and like they get rewarded for not fighting. Like the idea that is how you should react is just like it goes against all of our instincts. It terrifies us. Yeah.
Yes.
Go not gentle into the dark of night.
Right.
Rings to mind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Dylan Thomas, right? Like one of my all-time favorite.
Maybe.
I think so.
Maybe, yeah.
If it's not Shakespeare, I'm never entirely sure.
Yeah, Dylan Thomas. Yeah. His story about his dad, right? His story about his dad, like like it's a poem for his dying dad, like, right, and like trying to process his grief, right? Like this again, it goes into that instinct that, look, I don't want you to be okay with this. I want you to fight. Please don't resolve because I can't lose you, right? Like, and that concept that we would be okay with going forward. Good Lord, like, yeah. So.
Oh, Uncle Joe.
Hello, Joe.
It's always better when Angry Santa is here.
Somebody mentioned Angry Santa earlier in the comments, but it's way back. It was like towards the beginning.
Okay, sorry, go for it, Eric.
No, let's see. How about we talk about a different kind of horror, and that's like existential horror.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna bring up Jacob's Ladder because that movie disturbs me on a different level. Like, just the idea, of losing my mind, going crazy, that in and of itself scares me. But the idea of like realizing that the crazy is your reality, that like, I mean, he's, spoiler alert, he's dead, but he's still like living on in this hallucinatory reality where everything is just broken and things are spiraling out of control, and he is seeing some of the most demonic, horrible things, and there's just nothing he can do to find that peace, to accept it, and the whole movie is about that, and it's harrowing as hell. I can almost not deal with it. It's not a movie I can watch very often because it really gets to me. I'm so glad it kind of has a happy ending where he like, walks up the staircase to heaven with a little tiny cute Macaulay Culkin. But man, that movie. Does anybody have any thoughts on it?
No, that was the second one on my list.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah. No, like that. Oh, that was just one of the freakiest, terrifying. I watched it once and I haven't been able to watch it again. Like, I watched it years ago. Like around the time that it came out. So I haven't seen it yet, man. It's terrifying.
I gotta grant you the idea that the concept of having to question reality and that nothing is nailed down and that things can change literally from instant to instant, like something out of a nightmare, I found incredibly unsettling. There's one of the best episodes of the, fine attempt, not quite make it, the Canadian remake of The Outer Limits back in the 90s. There's a great episode where this relief ship that had an antidote for a plague on this colony is taken over by spiders, and the spider venom is hallucinogenic. So the guy can never tell when he's dreaming or not, and there's a twist ending, which I bet you can figure out. But I found it. I just find that concept very, very, very unsettling. Possibly because I have a lot of nightmares like that. Like this one where I'll need to find something in a book, and no matter how many times I flip this way, I have to go back the other way, and then I can never get to like page 175. I'm at page 400. I'm at page 60. I'm at page 500. It's because the book isn't tangible. So
true terror.
It's not rooted in reality. So yeah, when you can take reality out of the equation, it's incredibly off-putting. So yeah, I can definitely see how that would scare someone. Definitely.
Slasher Fred, hello. Yes, The Secret of Nim is one of the scariest kids movies ever made.
Oh yeah,
hands down. That freaking owl. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my girls loved it, but we watched it a few years ago. My girls loved it, but absolutely it terrified them. But they love it, and I'm like,
yeah, I watched the heck out of it, but it scared the crap out of me. Just the visuals of it, like the visual style, is what's terrifying.
Yeah.
What else? I was going to go back to Jacob's Ladder. You mentioned Outer Limits, but it is based on an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which was actually turned into a Twilight Zone episode. That was like the inspiration for it. The guy being
connection
executed, and he thinks he is escaping and getting away, but it all turns out that this is like just a fantasy flashing before his eyes as he dies. It's that kind of stuff really, like, I don't know, it just really gets to me. I don't really know how to express it. But also Jacob's Ladder has just individual scenes. Like when he's going into the hospital and it starts as a hospital and it slowly just morphs into, well, hell. And like there's these body parts just discarded on the ground and the wheels of his stretcher are just going up against it.
Yeah, dude,
You
and
got
Tim
these like
Robbins.
people without their limbs climbing on a grated ceiling like something out of Silent Hill. It's so much. But also the idea, like there's one scene where they don't really show anything, but the implication is even more terrifying than anything they could have shown. And that's the actual reality of what happened. Is he was in Vietnam and it was part of like MK Ultra or something, and they gave him a bunch of like a really powerful psychogenic drug of some sort that was going to make them super aggressive, and they actually killed each other, like literally ripping each other apart, like something, I don't know, like out of Event Horizon, but like you don't see it, you just get the implication of it. And the idea that you could be so out of your mind that you would literally start ripping your companions apart, that is terrifying.
Very much so. Definitely.
Eric, we're gonna have to have that in our Patreon whenever our podcast gets a Patreon. Like that will have to be one of our episodes. Probably
What?
our last one.
Watching Jacob's Ladder together.
No, like doing a Vietnam like psychedelic where we rip
Oh,
each
doing
other
drugs that
apart.
we rip each other apart. Okay, yeah. That seems more reasonable.
Right, yeah.
Well, there were stories from the Second World War because the German soldiers were issued meth.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there were stories of them just flipping out and just randomly firing at anything that moved.
Yeah, stuff like that
sometimes each
happened.
other.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
it's not far fetched.
Not at all.
Yeah. Like, well, and when you think about like war, like to me, like the fact that we romanticize war and it in and of itself has like I'm not familiar. If anyone like post in the chat if you're familiar with one, but I am not familiar with an actual war horror film. Where they
I
like
can think of a few.
okay. Where it's like it's just the war is the horror, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Where just because that's the most horrific thing a human being can go through, right? All of the emotions, all of the like everything. That is the most horrific creation that we as human beings have ever made, right? And
Well, the
when you-
Normandy invasion in Saving Private Ryan, I know Spielberg intentionally shot that like a horror movie.
yeah, and I agree with you. I agree that like I know it's hard because they docked at when it's sun like the sun was out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like they dock during the daytime, so it's like it's hard to make it dark and creepy and spooky and everything.
He just
But,
washed
like,
it out.
Yeah, but like it just when you read stories like especially in World War II, there were stories that I read of soldiers accounts and like they're purposely missing because they don't actually want to kill someone, and the psychological construct of my life is at risk, but the horror of ending another person's life, like I really just want to scare them to run away. Like that's all I'm trying to aim for. And like and when you get like even both sides, because again these are just people, everyday people that are thrusted into to this situation, right? And the people that are orchestrating this have no risk, right? The people that are really like orchestrating and putting this like have no risk, and yet the average person, the average citizen is the one that's risking everything, and they don't want to go. And like the psychological aspect of this, right, is such a horrifying thing to me. So when you hear about like what we did in these different wars, what we like did to try and like what we did to people, you know, it becomes like a horror show in and of itself. Like you know,
No, to get really real for a second, like my grandfather's told me stories where he was in World War II. He was in the he was in the theater. But he's talked about knowing when he had to shoot somebody, and like the moment he knew he had to do it, he remembers picking up the gun. He even remembers aiming, but then the next thing he remembers is like 5 minutes later. There's no memory there. It's gone. His brain will not allow him to remember that. Yeah.
Well, my grandfather was in the Pacific. He and his brother and the stories of his like of my great uncle, and they're just going through these Asian islands, and like these reports of some of the, like, they were one of the bloodiest groups, and they were just going by land and just like rivers of blood, right? Just tearing people up and just slaughtering people. And then my grandfather, like, having to kill a person with his own hand, with his hands, right? And like these, and the fact that you're just like doing this, and then the impact of that it laid on him, that it how it affected him for like decades after. It's something he never got over, right? And how it tortured him, like again, that's why I'm saying, a war is we romanticize it to create heroes, but like the people that live it, like, there's some people that see themselves as heroes, right? But the people that like really, and I'm always like, the psychological things that we do to like protect ourselves, right? And the rationalities and all this different stuff, like, can be beneficial in those instances. But like, there's also a little bit of like, I'm curious, like, on the atypical or the antisocial personality disorder and the narcissistic personality. If you were to take an MMPI of these people that identify themselves, that have gone through the bulge, and see them and identify them, what they're, themselves as heroic. And I'm curious, because again, that's a protective measure, right? Of like that, like, of otherism and dehumanization. But like, I'm really curious about like some of these things, and the people that struggle, like their levels of empathy, all of this different stuff, like where their scores and the differences, right? Like, I would really love to get into like, to evaluate, like, or read a study on like that compares how, their school, like their I wish we would do more MMPIs on people as a baseline before they go into things like police and military service, just to see like the difference versus when they come out, like, in the effects of that, right? But anyways, I think horror, or like war, would be, just war itself would be a great platform for truly horrific horror. Sorry, I went on a long.
No, I was actually going to change the subject. So if you have something else to say, go ahead.
I would actually suggest you have to go outside the United States, because even our anti-war films have a tendency to glamorize it on some level, if for another reason than to give it a solid narrative. Sometimes you have to just make stories interesting. But if you go to Japanese cinema, particularly the cinema made immediately after the war, when they were still occupied, and there were actually restrictions, like they weren't allowed to they had handcuffs on and couldn't do anything to glamorize war to create a new military state. But some of the Japanese war films about their experiences were in fact horror films, and a specific one I'm going to throw out to you is one called Fire on the Plains, which is about a soldier who, he's basically abandoned. It's in the last days of the Filipino campaign, and the Japanese, they're basically just stuck there with no resupply or even command communication. I think my camera just died, but I'll continue on verbally.
Can still hear you.
I can still hear you.
Good.
And it looks like you're still gesticulating, so go.
I will continue to gesticulate. And there are stories of them reverting to cannibalism. It's a truly, truly, truly horrifying story. So if you want a true horror story set in World War II, go with Fire on the Plains. Please.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, see, I was thinking more along like a traditional horror movie. Like, there's a really good recent example is Overlord, where it's like Nazi zombies. But, it's cool.
Well, Shockwave, same thing,
Yeah. Nazi zombies are a thing, yeah.
Nazi zombies are a thing. Wizards has Nazi zombies.
That's true, yeah. But I wanted to go back up to the chat because Lance mentioned just various clowns being scary, like It, or Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or even the Joker. And I just wanted to highlight that and say, yes, you are correct, Lance. Clowns can be very terrifying, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and that's a common phobia too.
Yeah, what's the name of it? I can't remember.
Well, what's the first thing they tell you when you're a kid? Don't talk to strangers. What
Right.
can be stranger than a clown? My mother says that when I was very little, I was afraid of clowns. I don't recall it. I'll take your word for it. But it's like, well, what do you expect? They're the definition of strange. And you go talk to the nice clown. I don't want to talk to the nice clown.
His name is John Wayne Gacy. He'll be nice.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Ding, ding, Colrophobia.
Thank you. I knew it somewhere in my brain. The only one I can only remember off the top of my head really fast is triskaidekaphobia, which is the fear of the number 13.
That's the only number I'm not afraid of.
Thank you, Indy.
Yeah. You got it too.
Indy, you're the man.
All right, sorry. Whose turn is it?
I think it's Thrash's turn, but
Yeah,
I just want to say to
'cause
Tom,
Jacob's out of
we're
it.
not going to talk about our favorite war movie. That's a whole nother subject. And I know
It'd be a
Thrash
great
has
show.
thoughts.
Yeah,
It would be a
I
great show.
do.
We'll save it for
do.
a non-spooky month.
I do. I'm actually going to go with one that actually scared me as a child for reasons that are going to be all too obvious. I'm going to go with 1975's Jaws.
Nice. It had to be coming up eventually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I live on Cape Cod. I used to spend my summers like in the water, and the idea of this like demon shark that could come out of nowhere and eat you. And I remember the first casualty in the movie was a kid, you
Yep.
know, and the movie just scared the. I was scared of the movie before I saw it. The commercials and that music and Percy Rodriguez's voice scared me when I was a child. To the point, and please don't laugh at me, I was a weird kid. To the point where when I was 8 years old, I went through a period where the sensation of being in a tub of water, a bathtub of water, was,
No, I get you. Totally. Yeah.
was terrifying to me.
There's like a
Put the
scene
bubbles I
in
want
a,
to see.
there's a scene in like it's like a horror spoof. I think it's like Saturday the 14th or something. It's like, it's not a good movie in any way, but there's a scene where like she's in the bathtub and like the little jaw fin comes up in the bathtub, and that spoke to me, man. I felt that.
Or the Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street. There's a
Yeah,
scene-
Nightmare on Elm Street with the hand. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna leave it at this. It's like I could like I just like as soon as you said that, I was like, something smells fishy. I'm sorry. I had to. It was laying out there.
I understand you had to.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to anyone that I offended, and I immediately regret and admonish myself. So
You're growing as a person. You have regrets now. But yeah, no, like Jaws. Again, it's that underwater, like that fear of like. There's another word for this, like the fear of deep water, where the idea that there could be anything underneath you and you just don't know what it is. I personally am not scared of sharks because I've been scuba diving with sharks and they don't really bother me that much. I mean, I'm not in Australia. If I were in Australia, I'd be terrified. And I'd be terrified of everything in Australia, even the Australians.
Especially.
they're the
No,
most
some of my
dangerous.
best friends are Australian. No, yeah, I would get that. I would get that feeling even in, maybe not so much in a tub, but like in the pool. Like I swam in the pool all the time. I'm a Florida boy. And yeah, I would always be afraid that something was going to lick me on my feet. And I was afraid of not sharks, but I was afraid of jellyfish. Jellyfish terrify me. To this day, I can't stand jellyfish. They like activate all those like lizard brain signals and I can't deal with it.
They look
I feel
alien. They really do.
They do. They totally look like aliens. Like, how do they exist? Like a moon jellyfish, it's completely transparent. It has nothing. How is that a thing that is alive and can sting you?
And it's poisonous, yeah.
Ah!
Well,
And man o' war,
it's so-
don't even get me started on Portuguese man o' wars, man.
yeah.
It just look like a plastic bag floating on the surface is the scariest thing in the world.
And then to top it off, when I grew up here in Yarmouth, right here on Cape Cod, and there's a salt river which divides us from our neighboring town, Dennis. And there was an old train bridge that was seldom used, and me and my friends used to like during the summers we'd go diving off of it to cool off and stuff. And I will never, to the day I die, I will never remember. We had all dove in, we were all walking out, and I felt something sandpapery brush across my leg. And I turned to the kid next to me to ask him, "Did you feel that?" And before I was like, and I swear to God, the kid jumped. You could almost see his feet on the top of the water. He's like, ah, and he started running. And I go, yeah, he felt it too. And we all went running in. And to be honest, it was probably an eel, and we're all just being big baby heads.
Yeah,
But then again,
probably.
You hear the story about the 1916 shark attacks in Jersey, and it's like,
Yep.
best that we got out of the water for the day.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Crazy.
And you're right. Like in Jaws, the first thing that happens is a kid dies. Like
Kid. Well,
really, like
no.
that movie's not pulling its punches.
No.
The first one, technically, the first one is a really hot blonde co-ed.
Well, okay, there's that. Yeah, that's just the intro. But I mean, that too is also terrifying. Like her body
Yes.
moving unnaturally on the surface.
And the beauty of like the serendipity, right? Of the fact that they couldn't get the shark to work, so they had to do everything like as imaginary, right? Rather than because like if I remember correctly, they wanted to actually have a shark in that scene, right?
Yeah, they were gonna have a shark in almost every scene that you don't see it. Yeah,
See it,
Right.
yes.
And so, but they couldn't get it to work. So instead, she had to do like they had to do it completely like where you can't see it, and it made it even scarier, right? So that like how serendipity, how and that's the whole point, right? Like we can't survive in water, we can't see in water, even though our eyes were evolved and you know are designed to actually better see in fluids than they are in air, like. We still can't see in water. Like it just feels unnatural. All this different stuff, and so like that whole construct of like being out of our element, right? Like literally, like it's just amazing. Just really
Hi, Tracy.
freaking-
Good to see
Hey,
you.
Trace.
Hey Tracy.
And in that opening sequence, you get that dichotomy again of like terror and peace. Because like as soon as she goes under, it's just still. It's silent.
Yeah.
It's peaceful. It's like waves kind of feeling. You know, like it's serene. Moonlight glistening on the water. Oh God, that alone makes it terrifying. It's weird.
Yep. It could just happen in an instant, right?
And the
Right.
world will go on without you, just as peacefully and serenely as before.
Well, it's like the song "The Horse with No Name." The ocean is a desert with the light
Right.
underground and the perfect disguise above. It's the ocean surface is like a canopy. You can't see what's
Right.
lurking underneath until it bites you.
Okay, Scott, now it's your turn.
Okay. First off, great call to America, wonderful band.
yeah.
Secondly, when you said Thrash, when you were talking about with your initial movie and like the New England kind of picture perfect kind of
I think he's been
setting.
stealing my movie.
Setting. Well, no. I'm not gonna steal your movie. I really love it because again, you talk about like Sleepy Hollow and all of the different
Yep.
like
Uh-huh.
horror like that comes from the New England design and everything. Like it really does. It makes itself a perfect backdrop for horror movies. So I'll leave it at that. So for me, the one that like I saw when I was actually older, I was living in an apartment with a friend of mine. And every time it suddenly got cold in my room, after seeing this movie, I got terrified because I was like, "What the heck's going on? You know, what's in my room with me, right?" And that is The Sixth Sense, like the ghosts and like the fact that you're seeing like the frost come, like the mist coming from your breath, like, and that meant that there was a ghost, and they did such a great job of like those like shock scenes, like when you would see like the mom in
violence
the
of how they died. Yeah. I
Like,
think
and-
this is a movie I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is a movie
No.
I bring up whenever anybody like complains about jump scares being used badly, because jump scares are used badly most of the time. But in The Sixth Sense, I feel like that's how you're supposed to do it.
yeah
Yeah.
no and like the mom in the kitchen, like
Right.
and like that switch, right, that she does, or like, you know, all of a sudden seeing hanging people in a school, like, or like you see someone normal and then they turn and they're like gored and bloody and stuff like that, and you're like, oh my god, like all of that just like, and it really goes to like, you know, we used to again, I work in healthcare, and so you see some dark stuff, so you have to have a dark sense of humor. And we used to go like, what's the non-violent way to go, the non-painful way to go? And it's like you're going through and you're like, there is none. Like, because even the things that we think are not, that are painless, are incredibly painful and incredibly violent, right? And like what's going on the inside, when you're dying, like there's just no good way to go, right? And so to see that portrayed in a ghost story, like it's that reminder that death is violent and horrific, right? And so to me, like, that's why, like, especially like ghost stories where you see how that, like, where you see how they die, terrifying.
Not to bring this really down, but I had heard this somewhere, and I don't have enough information to actually make the call one way or the other. You guys might, but when they talk about like painless execution, they talk about lethal injection because it's such a peaceful, visually
Peaceful for us, yeah. not for the
exactly.
person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've heard they theorize that you're literally suffocating. You just can't wave your arms and say, I'm suffocating, I'm suffocating. So it's probably a particularly hideous way to die, no matter how much value you pump
Absolutely.
into them first.
That gets to
Absolutely.
one of my other phobias, which is locked-in syndrome.
Yes.
Ah!
Ooh, yeah.
You know,
I can see
and
that.
like, because I was thinking about this earlier about like things that like lend themselves that I haven't seen, but like with your talk about like Jacob's Ladder and stuff like that, like I think another, for those authors out there, wink wink nudge nudge, a great way to make a horror story would be to make a horror story or a story where a person's going through an experience almost Memento-esque, right? But they're unknowingly going through Alzheimer's or dementia, right? And losing themselves, right? Because to me, like, that's the worst way to go. I'll take any other way. Just allow me to be me, right? Allow me to hold on to me, right? But the idea of I'm losing me, and now that there's a study that came out that linked the plastics that we use to Alzheimer's and possibly like autism, like some of the chemicals that we use in the plastics that we make might contribute to, not to say that it doesn't exist on its own, and that it's been well before plastics existed, but it could
They can definitely
to it.
contribute. Yeah. It makes
Right,
more sense
exactly.
than vaccines. Shut up, Mr.
Yes.
Wakefield.
Oh, I know, right? Oh God. But like, there's again, it needs more support, right? But like the fact that we have such a high percentage of plastic chemicals in us and plastics in us, it like, and why we're seeing an uptick in some of these, could it be, awareness or whatever? But like the idea of having like Alzheimer's and you're like, without realizing it, like, when I hear people say like, if I, like it turns out that they had multiple personality, or they turns out that they had, or dissociative identity disorder.
Whatever you want to call it.
Right. Like I use that one just because most people know that one rather than dissociative identity disorder.
Well, we've all
Or,
seen
I-
Psycho. Yeah.
Right. or like, or like it turns out they had schizophrenia. Like, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Like, come on, this is, but like,
I could do a whole
dementia.
episode on movies about multiple personalities because I got a lot.
Yeah.
Actually,
And so like that would be a good one. But no, like it would be a great, like to me that would be a terrifying thing, because not only are you losing your awareness of what recently happened, you're losing your sense of self too, right? And so like not only are you losing time, but you're also losing self. And so to me that would be like a terrifying, horrific experience. And if you have no explanation throughout the whole movie of what's going on, right? And then to realize, oh crap, that could be me in like 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years. Like that to me is terrifying. So.
No, like you actually lead in very well to the movie I also wanted to talk about, which is very similar to The Sixth Sense, and not just because the main character has been dead the whole time, but and also Jacob's Ladder, weirdly enough. And that's The Others with Nicole Kidman. It's the only good Nicole Kidman movie. Like, it's so good. Because she's this prim and proper woman with her 2 kids trying to keep everything together, but everything it's like a haunted house movie, but in reverse. Like, the movie, the house that they're
It's a
in
lot
is
like that.
haunted, but it's haunted by her because she is the one who's been dead the whole time. She murdered her children and couldn't accept and committed suicide, obviously, but couldn't like rectify that act with who she was as a person. And I mean, whether or not you believe in afterlife, whatever, it doesn't matter. That the idea that you have done something terrible and can't remember it, that in and of itself is horrifying to me. In the same way that Jacob's Ladder is horrifying to me, in the same way that even The Sixth Sense is a little scary. Although, like Indy, I hate to be that guy, but I saw it coming a mile away.
I did too. I did too. But and again, like the story wasn't like necessarily terrifying per se. But if you're like a small
moments.
child,
Yeah.
if you're a small child and this is your experience, like to me, that's what makes it terrifying. Like to be a small child and to have to go through anything like that. Anyways, so continue on with what you were saying.
But no, I mean, just in the others, it's a lot like that scene in Vietnam that I was talking about with Jacob's Ladder. It's just that idea that something breaks in you and you do something completely unthinkable, like murder your own children. And that is something that you have done and you have to deal with that. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I find existential horror, things like that, like personal existential horror, to be way more terrifying than just a standard ghost story. Like The Conjuring, not scary to me. Poltergeist isn't even all that scary to me, although that clown, again, clowns, that's pretty creepy. So, I mean, that's all. I think The Others is another one of those movies, kind of like Alien, that has a really good tone to it, a really good, like, gothic feel. It's very methodical. And unlike The Sixth Sense, I did not see the twist coming until about, like, 5 minutes before it's revealed. Like, I was totally blown away. So, yeah, that's all I really had to say about it. It's a good movie. I should see it, even though I just spoiled it for you.
I know, I no, definitely see it. But like, what I'll say about it is like, first off, the concept that, you know, if there is or whatever, like the idea that our mental defenses like denial, and rationalization, all these things can continue on into our spirit, like it's terrifying, right? And to me, this idea that so many like ghost stories, you know, take on is that we have to come to our we have to get closure, right?
Right.
It just kind of speaks to such a human experience, I think, that we can kind of connect with. And you know, so I love it for that kind of that construct. And then the you know, but I have actually worked with patients that, like one in particular, was a patient that heard their parent being and the abuse that they went through as a child, and their first psychotic break was hearing their parent yelling at them that led to them killing their spouse, and their spouse was the love of their life, right? And so instead of going to prison, they went to the state hospital, and served an incredibly long sentence at the state hospital, and then came out and everything. And the fact that this person didn't in their own life, like, was amazing to me, because the impact that they, you know, and the fact that they stuck with their treatment meant that they had to live with the knowledge that they had done this. So every single day they had to live, like, to me, again, so like The Others speaks so much to me, because I have seen and I have witnessed for myself how this can harm, right? And what this is like to live with your entire life, to have this knowledge, right? And so like when I hear like not being able to come to grips with it, totally makes sense to me. And how that's a horror in and of itself. So yeah.
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about with World War II, where like people who've been in war and have had to kill people, like they'll just blanket, they'll have a feud,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yep.
And Tracy, I wanted to agree with you. That Zuni warrior doll, I don't care what anybody else says. I think it's cute.
I remember watching that movie. I was like 12, 13 for the first time. And I got to tell you, I love the premise. In fact, I watched that movie for the first time. It was on TV. I saw the commercial for it. And I go, ooh, a haunted doll. I got to see this. Thinking it'd be scary. But I loved it. It reminded me of when I was a kid, you know, with when you're like having your action figures fight each other, you know? It looked like an action figure fight. And don't get me wrong, I love that movie. Karen Black, she's in a movie with 3 segments and plays 4 parts. If you could play 4 roles in a 3-part anthology, I think that's the record. But yeah, I was never actually scared by the Zuni doll.
I think he's cute. I would totally like buy a Zuni doll and have it like on my shelf over here of my toys. I've got a cute little Jason there for October. Yeah,
No, I think Karen Black with the knife and the teeth and that teethy smile at the end, that scared me. That when she's like chop, chop, waiting for her mother to show up.
right, yeah.
That I found unsettling. But
Yeah.
Oh, Tracy
Eric,
says you can buy them. Yeah.
yes, you can. Eric, I was just looking that up, and because that's why I laughed. I was like, "Oh my god, you can get it!" But it's like $400 or $500 on eBay.
Holy
like,
shit!
Yeah,
don't-
yeah. I know. I was like, I know Eric's, present for this year or whatever. Sorry, bud. No. I love you, but not that much.
No, I know, it's fine. You got me the face hugger. I don't know if you can really see it from here, but yeah, it's back there too. Scott buys me things.
Yes.
He's nice.
Well,
Okay, I don't remember who's turn it is.
It's Thrash's. I gotta
Okay,
pay
it's
for
mine.
the wonderful things you do for me, Eric. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Those are for free, man. Those are my pleasure.
I'm going to go with what I feel is possibly the most appropriate film of this holiday season, and then I have a few explanations as to why. But I'm just going to go John Carpenter's Halloween.
yeah,
Movie came out when I was like 11. The commercial in and of itself, where the door swings open really, really slow, like unnaturally slow, and I used to leave the room when I just saw that door swinging open. The commercial scared me. So anytime the commercial can already scare you, that's a good thing. And I got to tell you this little anecdote. When I was a kid, my mom got me this decoration for my room when I was like in preschool. It was a jack-o'-lantern, plastic, but it had a light inside. You'd plug it in and it would like glow. It was this glowing orange jack-o'-lantern. I'd put it in my window. That was a tradition for years. Well, one night, I don't know, it was bedtime or something. I had to go to my room. I was scared because I had seen the commercial for Halloween. It was a cold, windy night, so there's like wind outside, and a wind had brushed a tree branch against my window. And I had shut the light off, so it was just this glowing jack-o'-lantern that was on. And apparently, at one point, without realizing it, I must have put my hand on the pane, because there was a perfect handprint on the window. And when I looked over, there's this perfectly glowing orange handprint just on my window, and I lost it. I ran down the stairs, and I go, there's someone trying to get in my room. And my mother very patiently showed me that there was not, and I was insane. But to this day, and we're talking every bit of, let's see, I was 11. We're talking 45 years ago, and I still recall that. And then when I finally got around to see the scary movie, I found that it actually was scary. But one of the best bits about it's not just a slasher film. It's not just a people getting killed in ugly ways film. It's you're being haunted by the demons of your past. And
Absolutely.
no matter what you do, they're just going to keep coming and coming and coming. And no matter what you do, they're always going to be like 2 steps behind you. And stories like that, I don't know why. Stories like that I find really, really, really scary. They just stay with me.
No, as Tristan brings up Freddy Krueger, same idea. It's like the sins of your parents haunting you. That stuff is really scary. But I think Michael Myers is probably the best slasher, just because he really gets across that sense of relentlessness, that there's nothing you can do to stop him. And I think that's what makes him so scary. Yeah.
Oh,
I used to have, like with Tristan, I used to have regular nightmares about like Nightmare on Elm Street as a child. And what finally got me to stop was Nightmare on Elm Street 3. What are they called? The
Dream Warriors?
Yes.
Yep.
So when they're fighting back, right? And they're trying to fight back, right? I was like, oh, maybe I can fight back. And I was like, I love my comic books and everything. So like in my dream, I became like Wolverine. And I was like, oh, you've got one? I've got two.
kick.
ching, right? And just like tore him up. And after that, I never had a nightmare of Freddy Krueger again. So thank you, Dream Warriors.
Well, you got the point of Dream Warriors. That was like that's the thing, is how to conquer your fears is to just face them directly. Yeah.
Right?
Use
So,
your
there you go.
strengths.
That's right.
Even if it kills Nancy, because that's how it ends. But I say that, but Jason is always like, he's the cutest. I mean, just look at him. How can you not love Jason? He's even got
Until you
his own...
take the mask off.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not really cute then.
Oh, and I just want to throw this in there, and I'm apologizing if it's on anybody's list, but I know you were talking about how jump scares are, in some ways, a cheap way of getting a scare.
Yeah.
This spoiler alert: the scene at the end of Friday the 13th Part 1, where he jumps out of the lake, she's on that perfectly pastoral lake in the canoe, and he brrr. The first time I saw that, I think I wet myself. I was like, I was like 12 or 13, or at least slightly. But anyway, do you know that to this day, every time I see that, I get a little shudder. It's still to this day, it gets me. And again, we're talking well over 40 years ago.
The actor who did that had to like stay under the water underneath the canoe while with like a little snorkel sticking out, because they had to wait until the water was perfectly still before he jumped out. And that had to have been like, I don't know, that just had to have been aggravating, just how long you had to sit there underwater. And I don't know how they like signaled him, or if he just waited. I don't really know how that worked. But yeah, I don't know. That jump scare did get me, definitely.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, like the idea, like I hate snorkels. Like I hate snorkels just because it's like, so the idea of having difficulty breathing, like I'm asthmatic. And so like struggles with breathing are terrifying to me. And so like the snorkels it's not easy to breathe through, right? It's and so like the straw feeling, like to me would be horrifying.
Sorry, Vim's bringing up one of my favorite movies. One of my most disturbing movies, but I love The Cell with Vincent D'Onofrio, and yeah, so good.
That's a great one.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
Nope. But yeah, that was my only comment, was that the snorkel in and of itself would, for a long period of time, would be terrifying for me in and of itself.
More than agree. I mean, because every time you inhale, half that air you're getting is what you just exhaled, and you can feel it, and your lungs know it, and it's that sort of, you're starting to get a claustrophobic feel, even if you're not in a confined space. I remember, it's funny you mentioned that, old style like gas masks, same thing. I had got my hands on one. I think a friend of mine actually gave it to me. I think it's from his grandfather's war days or something. And we were filming one of our like old like 8mm like movies in the backyard, post-apocalyptic thing. And I go, hey, wait, I'll use this gas mask. It'll be one of our props. I'll play like a mutant. And little secret, it's really tough to breathe in those old style gas masks, because you have to exhale hard, because it actually pushes through, and there's like a little like nose flap. And if you don't exhale hard enough, the flap doesn't open up, and all the air just kind of stays in the mask with you. And no matter what you do, those eyepieces, they fog right up. So you literally feel like you get a face hugger on. So it's, again, same difference.
Yeah, so you're getting unoxygenated air that you're breathing back in, highly, like lots of carbon dioxide in it. And it's hard to breathe. You're becoming more, you're gradually becoming more acidic. It's affecting your thinking. Oh, like, dude, you're turning World War I and II into even greater like horrors for me than they already were. Good Lord. Like all the chemical warfare that they did back then before it became illegal. Oh. Yeah.
And Pink Floyd's The Wall, like when it had those people with the faces that were like based off of the World War I gas mask, and it was just like eye holes and a big mouth hole. That stuff's creepy. Yeah.
Oh, the Doctor Who episode with the kids that have, right? And like, are you my mommy? Like, we'll do that, like we'll joke with our kids, like, because they watched it with us. And like for all of us, it creeps us out. Like for all of us, that's just a creepy thing. So
Oh, Indy, I
yeah.
love it. Yeah, I was called to dinner that more than a couple of occasions.
So, I told you already a couple times today for some reason that I was a scuba diver, but I also used to do cavern diving. And if you don't like breathing and you don't like being claustrophobic, you should never go cavern diving.
The thought puts me off my food. The thought
Oh
is
my
making me
God.
uncomfortable. Ooh, hey.
Tristan, you didn't have to. Thank you so much, Tristan. I've got a video just for you, and then we'll talk about what you have suggested. Here it is. There you go, Tristan. So he's gonna say the It miniseries, the Tim Curry version, ruined him as a child. I realized he only killed when people were alone, so I was never in a room by myself. And I also think it is the source of my arachnophobia. I think arachnophobia is the source of my arachnophobia. But yeah, yeah, the It miniseries definitely scary. I think even though the recent big budget Andy Muschietti movie, at least the first one, was probably better made, I think the miniseries is scarier. There's just something about it, especially Tim Curry. There's just something about it. Yeah. And you're right, it makes you afraid to be alone. A lot of horror movies exploit that, and I think it did it really well. So yeah.
No, like that's actually I was my annual tradition of watching the old miniseries every year on with Halloween. And because like that's on my list actually, and that terrified me when it came out, because also I was a kid when that came out, and oh, like and then you have like this cast of this unbelievable cast, like I don't know everybody.
Yeah, what's Harry Stone doing in this movie?
Yeah, right. At like it like come on, Tim Curry, oh yeah, I forgot Seth Green was in it. But Richard Thomas, John Ritter, Annette O'Toole,
John Ritter, of course.
Like just like again like Harold T. Stone. Like I wanted Bold to come along and save everybody. No, but no, just like
you're a judge, you stand for justice. You're a defense attorney, you stand for the disadvantaged. I'm a bailiff, I stand.
No, I just I love that one. That one like terrified me. Absolutely. I think it was so well done. So well done.
My parents showed me a lot of movies too young too. I don't really mind though. I think being warped helped.
So for me, my next one is The Ring. That
that's a good one.
That
US
one,
or Japanese?
Either one, really.
Oh,
The US version is actually pretty good. The first one, not the sequel. That's bad.
I'm trying to think which one I think I can't remember.
If you've only seen the American one, there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine.
Yeah, I think I've only seen the American one.
I love Naomi Watts in it. She does a really good job. Yeah.
Yes. And so maybe I did go and watch the Japanese one later on. I don't know. Like really pasty. Like that movie ruined goth Asian girls for me. Because like really pasty Asian girls with dark hair, like.
Yeah, Japan has never gotten over that. They're still making movies about pasty little girls with long black hair.
Oh my god, it is terrifying. And then like I think if I remember correctly, or I could be wrong on this, but at least to me that's the first time I saw like people like crawling on the wall and that like kind of like spider movement and everything. And
I'm going to talk about that in my next movie, so we'll get there.
Yeah, it's that is like the unnatural human movements, right, of the bodies and everything. Like just complete.
I like how they had her like moving like a VHS tape glitches, you know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then coming out of the TV, like just like no, terrified me. So.
The scariest scene in that whole movie actually is when they're in the state hospital, and that girl won't leave her room unless all the TVs are blocked off. like she's that traumatized.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to bring up the screens and stuff. I'm like, it really sold the fact. It's like, no, we're not messing around here. With this thing, if you survive, you're still not going to be okay. You know?
Apparently they're called Yurei in Japan.
Yeah, Yuri.
It's,
Or Yuri.
Japan has become an Ed Gorey
Yuri.
comic.
Okay. News to me.
Oh, no, he's the guy who did what was it? A is for Amy who fell down the stairs. B is for Basil. He did
Oh,
those,
right.
He was that artist who did the black and white line drawings that looked like they were from the 19th century, but they weren't.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it was all very gothic.
Cool.
Oh, I just googled Yuri, and oh my god, like,
Why would you do that?
oh,
I know
they're
of all things.
right. I know. No,
Now they're
it's
gonna come out of your
exactly.
computer screen.
Oh, I know, right? Oh.
You know,
Okay, so
You got
won't
1
be-
week, man.
fate, aren't we?
I know. I won't be in our next recording for the podcast because I will be dead. But no, like no,
7
like
days.
no, no, they're all that pasty white, black hair, absolutely terrifying. Yeah, no, I'm done.
I do love The Ring. I think it's great. But I can't stand the first 5 minutes. It belongs to a completely different. I'm talking about the American version, not the Japanese version. The first 5 minutes, it feels like a really, really cheap teen scare movie. It feels like a bad slasher movie. Because it's like the two girls talking about the premise and they get scared. And it's just, I hate it so much. Like it sets a really bad tone. The rest of the movie is perfect. It's very creepy. It's very like atmospheric. But that first 5-10 minutes before the credits really hit is just awful.
But films do stuff like that so they can pull the rug out from under you. It's like the first 20 minutes of Jeepers Creepers are
Well, that's
two kids
true.
in a car arguing with each other. By the time, when I saw it in the theaters, and by the time it got scary, I go, oh, that's right. I had forgotten I had gone to see a scary movie. I thought I was watching a road movie.
And yeah, Tristan, I think you're right. I think it was trying to copy Scream because the intro to Scream does something similar, but I think the intro to Scream does it so much better.
Yeah,
That's an excellent point. And yes,
Yeah.
it is better than Scream, but that's an excellent point, yes. But yeah, remember and I had this conversation with somebody, I can't remember who, but the best way to scare people is to get them to forget they're in a horror movie. Because then when the scare hits, they're like, they weren't expecting it.
Right,
you
yeah.
know?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and mention the next one because it's been brought up in the comments like a bajillion times. I feel like we should talk about it, and that's The Exorcist.
oh yeah, that's my list.
Yeah. I don't know if The Exorcist really terrified me as a kid. I saw it, and I remember thinking it was scary, but not like it wasn't Alien when I was 9 in the empty house, you know. But the idea of it, the idea of demonic possession, of like hallucinating demons and seeing demons and having demons talking to you, basically schizophrenia. Just that concept scared me as a kid. Like I keep mentioning, I'm scared of losing my mind, and just the idea of things coming out of the woodwork like that just bothers me. And yeah, she does the spider crawl down the stairs, and that is so creepy. I think that's creepier than when she spins her head all the way around.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. That is like the probably the first time that.
I knew Joe was going to say this. Funniest movie of all
Yeah.
time.
No. Joe and I went and saw it like when we were in Pensacola, like when we were teenagers, and when we watched it again, like I watched it as a kid, scary. When we watched it again, the scariest part of that whole movie was the telephone ring, because the way that the speakers were set up, it was like almost like the ring was right behind you, and it came out of nowhere, and that like kind of like startled me. But the rest of the movie, we were like, oh, this is a good movie or whatever, but like wasn't like terrifying. But like that actually, I was like, what the hell? Where? And so that was actually the scariest part of the whole movie when we watched it as like young, like older teenagers, young adults or something like that.
I never saw The Exorcist when I was younger, so by the time I actually got around to seeing it, I loved it as a movie. But
It's a
I was
great
kind of
movie.
out of my.
Yeah.
It is a great movie. It stands the test of time to this day. But I was kind of in my. It takes a lot to scare me. Like the movie itself did not scare me. I will tell you though, when I was young, for some reason, demonic possession, the concept scared me. So
Yeah,
I
same.
will grant you, it's a scary concept.
Oh yeah, to me, like especially like growing up in the Bible Belt, like, and then having a very religious mom and stuff like that, and yeah, that sort of thing, like early on was like a terrifying thing, and also like losing control over yourself, like not being in control.
Exactly. Exactly.
Indy says, as a child, he was more scared of cleaning up the pea soup puke than the devil.
Not in the mouth, not in the mouth. Oh God.
But no, it's like Thrash mentioned earlier, there are some things where the concept is scarier than the actual movie. Like when you actually sit down and watch the movie, it's not nearly as scary as you thought it was going to be. The classic example that I can think of from my life is I went to the video store with my parents. This was before even Blockbuster, so it was it was either a Suncoast or a Game Town Video or something like that. Anyway, and I saw the back cover to Predator. And it describes the plot that there's like this invisible alien stalking these Vietnam soldiers and killing them. And my parents wouldn't let me rent it. They said, that's too scary for you. You're not gonna enjoy that. And so I didn't rent it, but I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And it kept me up at night because I was terrified that there was some invisible alien about to kill me in my sleep, So when I finally did watch the movie, of course I loved it. It's one of my favorite movies, but like, it didn't scare me. It wasn't that scary. It had some moments, but it's not a scary movie. It's an action movie. But man, just the concept of it freaked the hell out of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see that.
Daily Dan, hello. He says you're frozen just talking about this stuff because you're so scared.
Yeah. Frozen with fear.
That was great. Okay, Eric, your turn.
No, it's Thrash's turn.
I'm sorry, Thrash.
Me again?
Okay.
Okay, I will consult my book of armaments here, and let's see, because I've talked about a lot of the goodies here. All right, and you know what? I apologize in advance for this, Tug, because we have talked about this ad infinitum, but in my opinion, it's one of the scariest movies. In some
You're going
ways,
to talk about I Am
spiritual.
Legend, aren't you?
Oh God, no! Oh God, no! That wasn't scary at all. Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
It has to
And
be
I'm gonna
talked about. Yes.
spotlight the '78 version.
Absolutely.
Because that one, and again, I was at the perfect age to be scared. Now the funny thing is, I'd actually seen the original first. I caught that on Creature Double Feature or something when I was a kid, so I kind of knew the premise. It didn't help. There was something about the '78 version that really sort of got under my skin, pun intended. But again, it's the fact that these aren't monsters; they're people you know. They've just changed, and they're going to hurt you, and you can't trust anyone. And that final scene, that that I can't even do it, but the Donald Sutherland scene, that literally, and even though deep down I knew they weren't going to win because they didn't win in the original, but just that one, talk about a jump scare. That's probably the second scariest thing I've seen next to Jason jumping out of the water in Friday the 13th. So to this day, I will say, even though it's considered a science fiction movie, I got to tell you, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of the scariest movies ever made.
No, I completely agree. It's the creepiest of all the Body Snatcher movies by far. We've talked about it at length, at nauseum. But and if you want more, just go look in my back catalog of live streams. It's there somewhere. But yeah, what else can I say about that movie that I haven't already said?
Well, one thing I always come back to also, and the last time I watched it, I noticed this again. Little things that you don't always notice. It's one of those movies where every time you watch it, you notice something new.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where she bumps into somebody in a hallway, and she goes, "Oh, excuse me," and the person just gives her this very like concerned look, like, "Are you attacking me?" Because it's an alien. They don't actually know what's going on. But when she looks over, everyone in the hallway has turned to stare at her.
Right.
And it's a foreshadow to the fact that, yes, everyone around you is turning to these aliens, but it's this very uncomfortable scene. Like, all of a sudden, she's the kid in the lunch line who dropped her milk, and now everyone's staring at her. Little things like that really sold the movie to me.
I think it also, like, it taps into some, like, real psychology. Scott's the expert, not me, but what's that called? Capgras syndrome or Capgras syndrome?
Yes.
Where like
Capgras.
you actually think people around you have been replaced somehow by imposters.
Yep. I have worked with people with that. It is.
Again, like I said, mental disorders scare me more than anything.
It can be incredibly dangerous, right? Because because again, like they earnestly believe they are, when they don't understand what they have, they earnestly believe that you are not who you say you are, so therefore you're a danger, and that they're wearing the skin of someone else. Like, come on, and if something's taking your loved one's skin, like, that is like, I had a patient that had schizophrenia, and part of her delusion, like I would have, like, I probably even should have like added a code for Copcross, but like I just kind of said like, well, this is just part of her
constellation of symptoms.
Yeah, right, from that's originating from it, but like my like coders would probably, like the people that work in coding would probably, you moron, why aren't you coding for that? But like
yes, 90% of being a psychiatrist is dealing with coding issues. Yeah.
Oh well, God, I know. Like, and is it really? It's a part of this, but no, it's anyways. And so hers wasn't as bad. She just believed people were not who they said they were, right? But like there was sort of like, she wasn't as dangerous, but there was one patient that I had that was like earnestly attempted to like try to end the life of some of his loved ones, and it's terrifying. Like when you finally get them stable and they're talking about their experience and trying to look for like cues and triggers and everything, it's a terrifying thing. And the fact that they have this, again, when you get well, like being sick isn't the terrifying part. It's when you get well and understanding the danger that you could pose, right? And not having control over that, that's terrifying. Like, to me, that's not being able to control yourself is terrifying, right? Kind of like that trap syndrome, or not trap syndrome, but like being like trapped in yourself, right? And
locked
like,
in, yeah,
locked in syndrome. Thank you. Like being trapped within yourself and not being able to, or even night terrors, right? Or night paralysis. That like when you're consciously aware, like, and yet you can't do anything about it. Like that's those things are terrifying to me.
I'll buy that.
Yeah. Like, no, like we talk about these horror films, but sometimes life is more horrifying than and our denial of this is a way of coping with the fact of, things that could be, right? And so
definitely. Where would we be without a certain amount of denial? It's like if you really sat down and thought about just how random and out of control things were, it would be tough to function. So it's much easier to just sort of laugh it off,
right?
Like, and I'm not advocating denial or living in a fool's paradise, but I'm saying I think we all use it as salve in one point or another.
To a certain extent, yeah, absolutely, right? Like when we think about like the fact that we know that there are dangerous people around us. You can look on certain websites and you can see where, the registries and where they live and stuff like that. So like we know there's dangerous people around us, yet we live in a level of denial of acknowledging this so that we can have peace of mind, right? Like all the stuff.
It's like why we don't feel the loss of like everybody on Earth who dies. Like if somebody dies in France, like somebody's dying in France right now, we're not gonna like feel it the way we would if it was somebody we knew. It's the same. It's that kind of way of coping with the world around us. We have to have some level of denial. We have to have some level of blinders on, or else we'll just be overwhelmed at all times by everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so, and again, that's why I love like movies and horror movies, because they play on our own natural like psychology that we experience all the time and amplify it. It's such a beautiful like way of processing our experience. And
All right.
There-
Well, Scott. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, there's an episode of Magnum PI, and I'm really reaching here. There's an episode of Magnum PI where he talks about the relationship he had with his father when he was young, and he and his father are having a camping trip, and it's dark and he's scared, and he goes, "What are you scared of?" And he goes, "Monsters." And the father goes, "What's the monster's name?" And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Name the monster." And he names the monster, and he goes, "Now tell it to go away." And he yells at it by name to go away. And he becomes much, much, much less scared. I think the point I'm trying to make here is movies, what they do is they play to our terrors, but somehow to see them acted out in pantomime somehow make them much, much more manageable. And I think that that's why people who have a fondness for horror movies tend to be less fraidy cats, because they're not ignoring their fears. They're cathartically coping with them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
No, it is that catharsis you get after a really good scare. It's like even a jump scare, a really good jump scare. If it really like terrifies you, the first thing you do afterwards is laugh because you feel better. So I think people who love horror movies understand that. They get that. Yeah. And people who don't understand what the big deal is with horror movies probably don't get that.
And you know, kind of like what you said, like, and building off of that, like, there's so many times when a person gets their diagnosis that they actually get a little bit of relief, because they, like you said, they get to name like this monster that's in their life, right? And now it can be controlled and managed and dealt with, and also feel a little bit more normalized in the sense that, or universalized, that they're not the only one that's going through this, right? That there's other people that have gone through this, and that we have at least some sort of understanding of what's, going on. And,
yeah, that's how come I befriended the xenomorph that lives in my bathroom.
Exactly.
Tell Tom I said hi.
No, his name's Jonesy. He named him after the cat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tom Jonesy. It's not
There you go.
unusual to be loved by anyone.
What's up, pussycat? Whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
And yes, Tom Jones.
That's right.
We have fun.
Okay, Scott. I'm getting close to calling it because it's about an hour and a half. So this is probably your last one.
Okay. For me, I gotta go, like, we've named, like, it's so many of the others on my list have been named, and one, like, poo-pooed. Thank you, Eric. I had The Conjuring on my list, and so
If it scares you, that's fine. Go for it, man.
Ghost freak. No, but like the one I want to bring up that hasn't.
I know too much about Lorraine and Warren. I know too much about the Warrens, and they don't scare me at all. They're freaking con men. So.
Yes, no, absolutely. But The Shining, like that.
Oh, good. I was torn about which one I was going to mention as my last one, and you picked one of them, so that's good.
And to me, the original Shining, like, and again, something about like the 1970s film is so much more terrifying.
1980, actually, isn't it?
Well, I mean, like 60s, 70s, 80s, like especially like just generally 70s horrors and early 80s horror, like the film process that they use versus what we do now with all the digital, like that makes it even more like that.
Yeah, just the
like
film
that little bit of
grain,
grainier, that little graininess and everything makes it to me even more terrifying, right? And so like to me, like when you look at the photos of ghosts from like the 1800s, 1900s, things like that, I took a family photo and there's this ghost image or this like creature behind them or whatever, to me like is terrifying so much more than if it was like a modern day like cell phone picture or whatever, because of the fact that that graininess of and that oldness of the photo itself, it adds to the horror to me, right? And so like the old school Shining, like this I've been to Estes Park. I love Estes Park, and that's where the hotel actually is in Estes Park, Colorado. It's an amazing hotel. I haven't ever had the chance to actually go in it though, so I want to at some point. The town is a beautiful town in the mountains, and so if you get the chance, go and do the tour of the hotel. But the hotel is beautiful. It's a wonderful setup, and the whole just general story of like, and again, I've talked about in our podcast, like my relationship with my dad is a very complex relationship. So then, like, your Superman becoming the monster that you fear, right, is a terrifying construct. And there's so many people that can, have this, that Superman, who's supposed to protect you, keep you safe, all this different things, becomes the monster in your life, right? Like in the movie The Shining, right? Is a terrifying thing, because if Superman's not there to protect you, then who is, right? If Superman's the monster, who's there to stop him, right? And so, like, it just kind of like, and this again, breaking down of the self into being uncontrolled, and then the twins, no. So
No, I think like the genius of Stanley Kubrick, and I know that Stephen King fucking hates this movie. Sorry, bad word.
I didn't
like,
know that.
He can't stand it. That's why he made the miniseries that was like truer to the book, and also those CG hedge animals they're awful. But the genius of Stanley Kubrick is he took the basic idea of The Shining, which was a very thinly veiled allegory for alcoholism. And he just ran with it. He made it about everything. He made it about abuse. He made it about, just so many different layers to it, and so many different ways of how you lose control over yourself. And as I keep bringing up over and over again throughout this stream, is that that's something that I find more terrifying than anything else, is losing control of your own inner self and your own ego, just losing it all. And I think that's what The Shining is really about. And it does it in such a way that you don't ever fully comprehend what's happening. And that's kind of what makes it so terrifying. It's that level of unknown to it that you can't really make sense of it. And if you think you can, you're probably wrong. I think that hits home really hard. Yeah. So it's a great one.
Definitely.
Well, and I can speak to, like, because I've spoke that I have PTSD, and I was misdiagnosed for much of my life and put on medications that are contraindicated to my treatment, and they led to behaviors like, that exacerbated things and kind of gave me a sense of lack of control, right? And it, like, and some impulsivity and things like that when I reflect on, like, the way that these medications impacted me, right, really, like, it hurts me, and how it affected my family, how it affected me, how it affected all this different stuff, right? And also, like, contributed and worsened a rift that was developing in my family, and led to, like, this dirge of my ability to see them, because of the fact of how worsened my symptoms were, right? And then so when I'm, like, working in my field, and we think about chemical restraints and taking control out of people, like, we think about giving, like in the EDs, when someone's out of control, they'll give them medications, and now they can't behave like themselves, like, because again, we have to do it for safety, but it's also a terrifying thing to me that I have, like, some, conflicts within myself of, like, doing a chemical restraint versus a physical restraint, because at least as to what extent
Hi, Tracy.
to what extent do we balance this for safety, and how much do we take away from the person, like, doing enough in order for them to be able to now be in control versus just zombifying them, right? Like the Thorazine shuffle kind of thing, and they're a drooling mess, right? Like again, like, it just kind of plays into this. I agree with you, that loss of self independence and self control, and this balance between our psychological dismay and our ability to cope with it. Like, it's it's a really kind of terrifying thing, and this is an everyday experience for people. And so, like, the fact that, like, we talk about these horror movies, like, for some people this is their reality, and that's a terrifying thing, right? And again, you go through enough, you go to war, it could be your break, right? You never know what'll be your break. And so you're welcome, people. You might be our next horror movie that we talk about. So enjoy yourselves. Have a wonderful Halloween.
Well, we gotta. I mean, that's a great way to end it. I think
really
we're just gonna stop. I was gonna keep going and talk about other things, but I think we should just stop. I mean, that was a really good closer. And behind the scenes, me and Scott have to get prepared for a podcast in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do a part 2 because I've got other movies I wanted to talk about.
I'd love to. Especially if we do it like this sometime this month.
Yeah, like
that'd be
either
great.
like next week or the week after, maybe. Yeah.
Be awesome.
Cool.
Definitely.
So keep that on the schedule, and I'll try to hopefully Lance will feel okay and he can join us. He seems to have disappeared from the chat. I'm not really sure where he went. Hopefully he's feeling better. Yeah. So yeah, Thrash, where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube content channel, Thrash Pondo Ponds. You can also find me on my YouTube non-content channel, Thrash Pondo Ponds. But go with the content. There's much more stuff to do there. And I'll be going live tonight at 7:30 for part 1 of my Halloween season chat.
Woo-hoo.
And
I'll be there.
I can't wait
In
to
the
see
chat.
you guys.
Yeah.
Of course, in the chat. And that's the best place to find me.
Cool. Okay, and in case you missed it in the chat, it was brought up, but I did do a video on Fright Night this morning. I dropped it on my channel, so go check that out. And yeah, this October I'm rocking on. I got a video coming out every week, so keep your eyes open. And yeah, we'll do this again either next week or the week after. I haven't decided yet. We'll figure it out, and we'll have a part 2. So see you then.
And if you want to join us more, like we're
right.
gonna do our pre-show, the foreplay stream.
From here to paternity.
There we go. So at that YouTube channel, so that we'll be there in about 20 minutes. And so feel free to join us as we talk about Fat Bear Week.
Right, it's Fat Bear Week.
That's right. It's 4 fat bears talking about Fat Bear Week. We're gonna have fun and other things. So, all right. Much love, man.
Bye.
Peace. Take care. Night all.
It's gonna take a minute.